She thought love was enough to conquer anything. But when betrayal shadowed their once perfect world, the truth shattered everything she believed. Now, faced with the echoes of a love she couldn't let go, can she find the strength to let it fade? Or will the pull of passion bring them back together, only to risk it all over again? It began as an unspoken longing, a silent ache neither dared to name. Two souls, bound by fate yet tethered to different destinies, found themselves drawn together in a dance of stolen glances and secret rendezvous. Their love was not meant to be, yet it bloomed in the shadows, wild, intoxicating, and irresistible. Every whispered promise, every touch, burned with the weight of desire and the guilt of the world they were betraying. The night became their sanctuary, the moon their only witness as they surrendered to a love that defied reason. But passion, no matter how fierce, cannot escape the cruel hands of time, and as dawn broke over their fleeting paradise, reality came crashing in. Hearts shattered, vows were broken, and the echoes of their forbidden love remained. Haunting, beautiful, and forever etched in the depths of their souls. As the days passed, their love became an addiction, one they could not resist, no matter how much they tried. Every stolen moment was a symphony of longing, every touch a silent confession of the love they were never meant to have. They met in secret, beneath the silver glow of the moon, where the world could not judge them. His fingers traced the contours of her face, as if memorizing every detail, and she trembled under his touch, knowing that with every kiss she was falling deeper into an abyss she could never escape. Yet love, no matter how passionate, is always shadowed by reality. He belonged to another, his heart divided between duty and desire. She too was bound by promises made long ago, yet her soul ached for the man who had become her forbidden paradise. One night, as the rain fell in soft whispers against the window, she looked into his eyes, searching for an answer they both feared. "Will we ever be free?" she asked, her voice trembling. He held her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead, his silence heavier than words. The answer hung in the air, unspoken yet understood. Some loves are meant to burn brightly, but never to last. But fate is a cruel mistress, and their secret was never meant to remain hidden. One fateful evening, the walls of their illusion crumbled, a letter found, a whisper overheard, a suspicion confirmed. Betrayal had a way of revealing itself when least expected. As the truth unraveled, they were forced to face the destruction they had left in their wake. Love had never felt so cruel, so devastating. And yet, even as their worlds collapsed around them, their hearts still ached for one another. "Maybe in another life," he whispered, brushing away her tears as they parted for the last time. "Maybe," she breathed, her voice a ghost of all the dreams they would never see come true. And so they became a memory, haunting, bittersweet, and eternally unfinished. Two souls who had loved too deeply, yet never enough to rewrite destiny. The days after their last goodbye were filled with unbearable silence. She moved through life like a ghost, her body present, but her heart lost in a world that no longer existed. Every familiar place reminded her of him, the scent of rain on the pavement, the way candlelight flickered in the darkness, the soft notes of a love song playing in the distance. He, too, carried the weight of their love like an invisible wound. He smiled where he was expected to, held the hand of the woman he had promised forever to, but inside, he was drowning. His nights were sleepless, haunted by the echo of her laughter, the taste of her lips, the warmth of her skin pressed against his. But fate is never truly finished with lovers who are meant to meet again. Months passed, and life moved forward, as it always does. She buried herself in routine, trying to silence the whispers of her heart. Yet, one evening, as she walked through the golden haze of autumn, she felt it, a presence, familiar and electric, pulling her back into a love she had tried so hard to forget. She turned, and there he was. The world around them faded, leaving only the two of them standing in the middle of fate's cruel design. His eyes held a storm of emotions, regret, longing, love that refused to die. She felt her breath hitch, her pulse quicken, the way it always did when he was near. They didn't need words. One step brought him closer. One heartbeat was all it took for the distance between them to disappear. His hands, still aching for her, found her face, and she melted into the touch she had craved for so long. "I tried to forget," he whispered, his voice rough with pain. "So did I," she breathed, tears glistening in her eyes. The kiss that followed was desperate, filled with everything they had lost and everything they still yearned for. It was love, raw and unrelenting, defying the life they had chosen to live without each other. But the world had not changed. The reality that had torn them apart still remained, lurking in the shadows, waiting to remind them that love, no matter how powerful, could not erase the consequences of their choices. She sat there, clutching the note to her chest, as if it could somehow hold him there, as if it could change the reality she now faced. The dawn filtered through her curtains, bathing the room in a golden glow, but it felt cold, lifeless. He was gone. She traced the words with her fingers, memorizing each stroke of his handwriting. "I love you. I always will, but some love stories are not meant to be written." A silent sob racked her body as she curled into herself. This was what she had feared the most, that their love, no matter how deep, was destined to be nothing more than an unfinished poem, a whisper lost to the wind. The days passed in a blur. She went to work, smiled when required, spoke when spoken to, but inside she felt hollow. Nights were the worst. The memory of his touch, his scent, the way his breath felt against her skin haunted her like a ghost she could never exorcise. She found herself walking through the streets where they had once stolen kisses, sitting in the cafe where they had laughed over coffee, staring at her phone, wondering if she should text him. But she never did. She wanted to believe that he was struggling just as much, that he lay awake at night, missing her, aching for her. But she also knew the truth. He had a life he had chosen, a life that didn't include her, and she had to learn to live without him. But fate is never so kind to lovers who were never meant to be. One evening, as she was leaving work, she saw him. He stood across the street, his hands buried in his coat pockets, his eyes locked onto her as if no time had passed at all. Her breath hitched. For a moment, neither of them moved. The world around them faded, leaving only the space between them, a chasm filled with everything they had left unsaid. And then, as if drawn by an invisible force, she crossed the street, her pulse hammering in her ears. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I had to see you," he admitted, his eyes searching hers, desperate and aching. Her heart clenched. "You left?" "I had to," he said, stepping closer. "But leaving didn't change anything. It didn't make me stop loving you." Her resolve wavered. "You can't keep doing this to me," she whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. "You can't keep coming back," he exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "I know, but I don't know how to stop." Silence settled between them. She wanted to tell him to walk away, to forget her, to live the life he had chosen, but when she opened her mouth, the words refused to come, because she knew she couldn't walk away either. "Come with me," he pleaded, "just for a little while." Her heart screamed at her to say no, but her soul whispered yes. And so, against all reason, she nodded. They drove for hours, escaping the city, escaping reality. Neither of them spoke much, but their hands remained entwined between them, fingers tangled in a silent promise. When they arrived at a small seaside town, the sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, its waves crashing against the shore in a rhythmic lullaby. They walked along the beach, their footprints side by side in the sand. "Do you ever wonder what it would have been like?" he asked suddenly. She glanced at him. "What?" "If we had met at a different time, if we had been free to love each other without consequences." Her throat tightened. "Every day?" he sighed, stopping to face her. "I would have given you everything. A home, a life, my name." She swallowed back the lump in her throat, "And I would have taken it all." His hand came up to cradle her cheek. "It's not fair." "No," she agreed. "It never was." Their lips met again, soft and slow, filled with everything they couldn't have. They spent the night in a small cottage by the shore, wrapped in each other, knowing it was borrowed time. By morning, the inevitable loomed over them like a storm. She sat by the window, watching the waves, while he packed his bag, the weight of reality pressing down on them both. "Do you regret it?" he asked softly. She turned to him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Never." He stepped closer, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "Then let's not say goodbye this time." She gave him a sad smile. "We don't have to say it for it to be true." His fingers traced the outline of her lips, as if committing them to memory. And then, with one last lingering kiss, he walked out the door. She watched him leave, her heart shattering into pieces all over again, but this time she knew this was truly the end. No more stolen glances, no more fleeting moments, no more borrowed time. Only silence, only memories, and a love that would never fade, even if it could never be. Because some love stories are not meant to be written, but they are always, always meant to be felt. The weeks after his departure felt like a dream from which she could never wake. Every day she woke with the dull ache of knowing he was no longer a part of her life, that the moments they shared, those stolen, precious seconds of intimacy, were all she would ever have. She moved through her days like a shadow, the weight of their love hanging heavily on her chest. She had once believed that love would be enough to overcome everything, but now, standing in the quiet of her apartment, she realized how wrong she had been. Love was never enough. Love couldn't undo the pain of betrayal. It couldn't change the choices that had already been made. He had made his choice, and so had she. The days blurred into one another, and life, in its relentless pace, continued moving forward. At work, she found herself drowning in the monotonous tasks that filled her hours, her mind constantly drifting back to the times she had spent with him. Those moments, like precious jewels, shimmered in her memories. His touch, the feel of his lips on hers, the sound of his voice calling her name. It was all so vivid, so real, yet so impossibly distant. But there was one thing she couldn't shake, the lingering question that gnawed at her heart. Why had he left? She had begged him not to go. She had cried, pleaded, but his resolve had been as solid as stone. He had made his decision, and though she had promised herself that she would never chase him, a part of her wondered, if she had only been stronger, braver, would he have stayed? The thought consumed her at night, alone in the silence of her apartment. She had never been one to dwell on what-ifs, but this one was different. Her love for him was more than just a passing infatuation. It was deeper than anything she had ever felt before. It was as if their souls were intertwined, tied together by invisible threads that no one, not even time, could sever. One evening, after another long day of pretending that she was fine, she found herself standing in front of the cafe where they had first met. It was a place she had visited often in the early days of their love, an unassuming little spot where the aroma of fresh coffee always filled the air, and the sound of light jazz played softly in the background. It was where they had shared their first kiss, where he had whispered sweet promises into her ear, where everything had felt so perfectly right. But now, as she stood there, everything felt wrong. The cafe had become a place of painful memories, a place where every corner held the echo of their laughter, their love, their togetherness. She had avoided it for weeks, afraid that being there would shatter her fragile composure. But now, for reasons she couldn't fully explain, she felt drawn to it. She pushed the door open and stepped inside, the warmth of the cafe enveloping her. The familiar hum of quiet conversations and the clinking of cups felt like a distant memory. She walked to the counter, ordered a coffee, and found a seat in the corner, hoping to lose herself in the comfort of the place. But the moment she sat down, her eyes locked onto a figure across the room. He was sitting at a table by the window, his back to her. Her heart leaped into her throat, and for a moment she thought she might faint. Could it be him? Was it really him? She tried to convince herself that it was just a trick of her mind, that it couldn't possibly be him. But as he turned slightly in her direction, their gazes met, and time seemed to freeze. Eric, and there he was, standing in the doorway of her heart once more. He looked different, older, perhaps more weary, but the intensity in his eyes hadn't faded. If anything, it had deepened, as if the distance between them had only made his longing for her more profound. He didn't move, didn't say anything at first. He simply stood there, watching her, as if trying to decide whether to approach or remain in the shadows. She was the first to break the silence. Her voice, barely a whisper, trembled as she spoke his name. "Ethan?" He smiled, the expression bittersweet. "I never thought I'd see you here." For a moment, neither of them knew what to say. Words seemed insufficient for the weight of their shared history, their broken past. They were both trapped in the same moment. Two souls who had once been so intertwined, now separated by the consequences of their own choices. Finally he spoke, his voice thick with emotion. "I've thought about you every day, you know." Her heart ached at the sincerity in his words. "I know," she whispered. "I've thought about you too." Ethan took a tentative step toward her, his hand hovering over the chair across from her. "Do you mind if I sit?" She nodded, her throat tight. She wasn't sure if she wanted him here, but at the same time, she couldn't bear the thought of him leaving again. He sat down, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was heavy with unspoken words, each of them carrying the weight of their past and the love that had never truly faded. "I don't know how to do this," he confessed, his voice low. "I don't know how to be around you without wanting everything we once had, without wanting to fix everything I broke." She looked down at her hands, twisting the edge of her napkin between her fingers. "Ethan, I don't know if we can fix anything. You made your choice, and I made mine. We can't just pretend that we're the same people we were before." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers, sending a jolt of electricity through her. "But we're still the same people," he said softly. "We might have been broken, but we're not beyond saving, not if we're willing to try." She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the tears sting at the corners. She wanted so badly to believe him, to believe that their love could heal, that the distance between them could be closed. But deep down, she knew that there were some things that could never be undone. "I don't know if I can trust you again," she said, her voice barely audible. "Not after everything that happened." Ethan's eyes darkened with regret. "I know. I understand." They sat in silence for a while, the weight of their shared history pressing down on them both. She could feel the love between them. Still raw, still aching, still powerful. But she also knew that love alone was not enough. Not anymore. Finally, he stood up and she watched him, feeling the finality of the moment settle over her. He leaned down and kissed her forehead, a soft, lingering kiss, filled with all the love they had once shared. "I'll always love you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "And I'll always love you, too." And with that, he turned and walked out of her life once more. This time, she didn't chase him. This time, she knew that some love stories were not meant to have a happy ending. But even so, she couldn't help but be grateful for the time they had, for the love that had shaped her, and for the lessons it had taught her about herself. As the door closed behind him, she finally understood. Some loves, no matter how deep, are meant to be felt, not kept. And though their story had ended, she knew she would carry him with her forever.